Hello, it is just me. So. Probably need a microphone. At this point, I have not had confirmation from our guest. I had confirmation midweek, everything was going to plan, and sent them the email at 45 minutes ago, actually an hour ago, saying here is the link, and I've had nothing back. So I've got a horrible feeling that we might have been lost in a clock math translation, which might suck a little bit. And also, it's John's actual wedding anniversary today, so he's unable to join us as well. The exact message I got from John was, it's my wedding anniversary. You can tell my wife that I'm not turning up to it, or I'm going to go out for dinner with my wife. And I said, that's fine, buddy. I'm not going to poke that bear. I'm not going to have that argument. We're good to go. So it's me at this point. I figured that I should push the go live button because, well, otherwise, I don't know, seemed to make more sense. But yeah, seems kind of weird talking to myself on a screen. Seems kind of weird talking to myself when I prep myself up for speaking to someone. But hey, here we are. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Friday. Oh, here we go. All right. Fantastic. All right, I'll just. Benny is in the chat, which is cool. So I'll resend him the email right now. So he might only be a couple minutes away. There we go. See, there was a reason I thought going live was a good option. I have sent it to you now, buddy. It's all should be there in about 30 seconds. Cool. Look at that. How good. So yeah, you're not going to have to listen to me mumble and rumble. We can get on with what we normally would do, which is fantastic. So you might just have to bear with me for the next little while we get it sorted out. And we'll be getting it sorted out on the run, which will be a fun time as well. But yeah, awesome. I've sent that email to you now, Benny. Hopefully it has arrived. And hopefully we see you pop up in a very short couple of minutes. So yeah. Until then, is everyone having a good week? Done some good fishy stuff. I've slowly but surely been pulling apart the fish room. Pulled no mail so far. Uh-oh. What's going on? What's going on? Weather here, it's meant to rain all day today, actually. Let's try again. Right. We all love technical issues on the fly. Okay, I've just tried to send another email to you on the same email address that we sent last time, but via a new thread, if that makes sense. So hopefully it'll arrive soon. Fingers crossed. Sent items. Yep, they've all been sent. So fingers crossed it turns up. Weather here. Yep, meant to be pretty rainy today, but fine tomorrow, which is good because cricket tomorrow. For those that have just popped on in, we're just waiting for our guest to turn up. The link hasn't managed its way through via email, so hopefully it gets through very, very soon. That is the hope. Hello, Greg. Hello, Jody. Good morning, Jim. Good afternoon, good evening. And hello, Superhero. I hope we're all well and dandy. Right. You know, there might be even a bit of a silver lining to this because today's plan was to learn how to edit videos a little bit better. It's particularly learning to edit videos a little bit better before putting them onto podcast format. So today, after this, I might be able to cut this whole 5 to 10 minutes worth of gaff out and make the podcast itself ridiculously professional. If you can believe something that I would do would come out professional, but yeah. So fingers crossed. Has the email come through, Benny? Are we still waiting for that? If you're still in the chat. Cool. The link is there. We are away once you arrive, so it's cool. Keep it for blooper reels. Well, I could keep it for blooper reels, but for a little while now, I've been wondering how to get more people watching and listening. And I figure if we tidy it up and actually make it slightly better, more people might be interested in listening. Maybe not, but you never know. So, yeah. Hi, Jonathan. Hello, Kim, and hello, Matt. Just for those that have just arrived, we're just probably a couple minutes away from our guest popping on. We had a few technical issues with the link not getting through, but now it's got through. We shouldn't be too far away, so it'll be a fun time. While we're all having fun in the chat, what have we done in our fishy fishness this week? Anyone got any new fish? Spawned any new fish? Done anything else with fish? I don't know how many more times I can say the word fish in this sentence. Cool to see you've switched over, Greg, onto the YouTube machine, not the Facebook machine. It is coming through, buddy. Thank you. I'm also very impressed that I've managed to ramble to myself for 6.5 minutes. It's a good time. All right, here we go. I'll push the button. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. I hope you can hear me too.
Yeah, we're all good. Look at that. We've got it going.
Need a little light here.
Yeah.
So now you can see me as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Oh, thank you very much for joining us. We got there in the end. Fantastic. Cool. So, before we get too far into this, can you please tell people who are watching who you are and what you do?
Okay, yeah. I'm Benjamin. Most of you will know me as Benny. That's why I got the name in there. What am I doing? I'm basically a PhD student for like, I don't know, 6 years. I need to finish right now. It's kind of a mess. But beside that, I also own a shrimp breeding facility with an online shop and lots of fish, different ones, mostly labyrinth fish. And I am one of the managers of the Parosphromenus Project. That's why you asked me to join you, so you can ask me about Parosphromenus and other lovely small labyrinth fish.
Cool, fantastic. So the person that actually asked me to make contact with you is in the chat right now. So her name is Nick's Equestrian. So we can all thank her for asking for this guest, and thank you very much for being with us today as well.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Cool. So there is a very, very, very high chance that I'm going to butcher the name every single time, but I'm going to try and get better in saying Parosphromenus every time we speak. So
it's Parosphromenus, but it's Licorice gourami in English.
Cool. Am I allowed to just say Licorice gourami? Will you get angry at me if I just say that? Awesome, thank you. Cool, okay, so how did your journey into fish keeping begin?
Oh wow, it was a really long time ago. I, like every child, I wanted to have lots of pets, like cats and dogs and birds, everything. But my father was allergic to basically everything, like fur and feathers, and so I wanted a snake. But my mother was not really amused. So in the end, I got a turtle, and it was a really old one from some colleague of my father. I don't know. It was kind of, I had this tank with the turtle. And after a few years, she died, and now I had an empty tank there, and started like everyone does, like going to the pet shop and having a look at the beautiful small fish at like a community tank at first. But yeah, it was actually quite fast that I got to know someone that was breeding small bettas. It was betta Burdigala, so a small red beta. I think right now it is beta uberus. Actually, they renamed the local type, but anyway, it was a very special thing to own kind of fish that no one has. And yeah, I joined some aquarium club, and then everything started to to become more. I wouldn't say professional, but I was still a student. But yeah, it was kind of fun having more tanks breeding here and there, and going into Parosphromenus eventually, and then in I don't know, the Parosphromenus Project established around 2007, I guess. So becoming kind of independent from the IGL, which is a anemotoid club in Germany. And yeah, I was from the start involved somehow, like doing the census or keeping kind of email addresses sorted and everything. And then after a while, Professor Dr. Peter Finke, who established this project as such as it is today, he asked me and Helene to go on, and he wanted to step back. So here we are today, still working on the Parosphromenus project, and hope to kind of do our part for the conservation of these little fish. That I think it's 23 species right now. There's more or less. There's a lot of unknown or undescribed species, basically, and most of them are already endangered, or some are extinct. So yeah, here we are.
Cool. So what sort of led you to be involved with the project? Like, how did that kind of adapt and evolve to where you are now?
Yeah, at first it started in the IGL club. So they had some breeders, some enthusiasts, and Peter, he was university professor doing some theoretical science work. And at some point he said, well, it would be necessary to have kind of a global project to ensure the safety of kind of some of these little species. And it still is a hobbyist's part, but he was really into citizen science. So he was like, okay, the hobbyists, they can do more than just having fun. We need to kind of streamline the whole process and reach out to as many as possible and try to pool the experience and also the tank capacity to breed them. And yeah, eventually it worked out somehow.
Cool. So what was the spark that made you realize that the licorice gouramis needed some dedicated conservation efforts?
Oh yeah, at first it was just fun having really special fish. Like, it's nearly impossible, or it was at the time nearly impossible to find these fish in a store. It was commercial imports were really rare. Right now there are some species more or less often imported, at least to Europe. I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but yeah, it is possible to get some fish. But at the time, it was really mostly enthusiasts going there, catching some fish, and then it was from the start. It was really necessary to breed them to preserve this kind of self-caught fish, because, well, there was no import, and if they were not bred, then they were gone. So it was kind of a default conservation program. So they had to be bred to stay in the club. And then everyone noticed, like, the palm oil plantation and everything was in the media. So it is not just the orangutan. It was we were just saying, okay, it's nice to have this big flagship species, cute little mammals or bigger mammals, but the fish, they can be really beautiful. They can be really shiny. That's also one of the parts that we wanted to involve kind of professional institutions like zoos and aquarium. So yeah, we wanted to promote them as well.
Cool. Where's the native localities?
Yeah, there's basically Indonesia and Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
The species a little bit into Thailand, but most of it is in Indonesia.
Okay, cool. Are they quite known in those regions, or are they just a fish that swims around?
It's really special. Like they are really adapted to peat swamp areas, so they like acid and really soft water. And this is kind of special areas. I mean, it's not like you want to go there for your travel trip. It's more like swampy rainforest. So it's if you want to find them, you really have to search for them. They will not randomly swim in your net if you're just there on a travel.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the locals? Are they kind of aware that they're there and there's conservation if it's going on for them, or not so much?
It depends. I mean, there's increasing knowledge and also increasing awareness. Mostly, I think in Malaysia, it's a bit more developed and also more enthusiasts into Parosphromenus. So they start to actively look for new types, new species, or more local types with more color, with more red. And I don't know. Mostly, it was a red. Yeah, the red color was really preferred. So they were looking for different fish type, and they found lots of different kinds and posted photos on the internet. So we were really happy for every knowledge we could get, and also stay in contact with some of the local guys. But I guess the public, like the majority of the guys living there, and also in the actual habitat, like the owners or the ones that have their I don't know how to say it, like tribes living in there, they will not really recognize the Parosphromenus species as endangered or somehow I don't know, worthy of conservation. I don't really think that.
Cool. We've got a question from the watchers. Can you please talk to the difference between the two groups, the head up versus the head down courting species?
Yeah, I mean, most of the Parosphromenus we know is head down, so they will just, so everything is just for the courting behavior. Like the Parosphromenus that you see on the internet, these beautiful pictures, it's mostly males when they try to impress the females. And then there's a difference. Most of the typical species will have their head down and flesh with a tail kind of about 45 degree, or maybe even with a tail straight up. But then there's a different subgroup kind of, is Parosphromenus ornaticauda, Parvulus, and some of Sumatranus that do it the other way around. So they will have the head up and have kind of a dance in the water. It's really nice to observe. For the Parosphromenus sumatranus, I had a few of them in the past, and they were all having this behavior with the head up, and they were having like, I don't know, 30 or 40 centimeters for their dancing moves. So just with the head up, they would dance like this inside the tank to impress the females. And there was another type of Sumatranus reported. I did not see them live, but there were pictures. So there's kind of this split of the groups within Sumatranus. So there was one probably local group with the head down, and others with the head up. And it's also the body shape. Most of these head up groups have a really I don't know. They're kind of thinner. It's not as massive body as the other Parosphromenus.
What causes the difference between the head up and the head down?
Pardon?
Why is there a difference between the head up and the head down?
It's just the behavior difference, and also there's kind of difficulty in breeding. It is just experience that the head up dancing ones are mostly more difficult to breed. We don't really know why they have this behavior, but we do know that they are more likely to place or relocate their eggs. So they have a really small bubble nest. Sometimes they have no bubbles at all and just place the eggs in little under leaves, or maybe they have some like tubes, whatever, like little film tubes, something like this. They can breed in there, and in this head up ones species, they are more likely to relocate their eggs, and then we will not know if there's still eggs or fry there, or if it's just gone. Maybe some eat it, and they seem to be more difficult to breed.
Okay. Is there any reason or thoughts as to why they relocate their eggs?
And we don't really know. There's a possibility, like some in general, some fish species do not like to be watched. Like they have a really dark cave, so to say, where they want to have their eggs. And if we want to have a look, then we need to have a flashlight. And maybe they just don't want it. They will relocate in some place that we cannot see.
Do they relocate them in the wild as well, or just in aquarium settings?
Pardon? I just didn't.
Do they relocate the eggs in the wild as well, or just in aquarium settings?
There's no studies in the wild, and also it's really difficult because most of these guys live in really black water. So to see them in the natural habitat will be really difficult, and also to have like behavioral studies, you would need to place some camera equipment around a breeding pair, and I think it is really, really difficult to do such studies.
Yeah. Well, cool. All right, just back on to where we were. How would you describe the mission of the Parosphromenus Project in a few words?
Oh yeah, the mission is basically to conserve the Parosphromenus genus. So there's two different strains, or basically three. One is the ex situ breeding, like hobbyists, and also connected with professional institutes, so that we can secure kind of a backup population. And then there's kind of connection between hobbyists, professionals, and also scientists. Like we are connected with scientists that describe new species, that want to access some of the genetic material. Like if there's some fish dying in the project, we will always be happy if the breeder will preserve them, and later on it might be necessary to have them as reference in the genetic studies. So we already had lots of fish sequenced, and it's really good to have hobbyists involved there. So it feels good if you're doing your aquarium hobby, that there's something more to it, some more meaning. And then of course there's the last kind of part is the locals and the habitats. So Peter always wanted to involve the locals. It is really difficult for us, for like in Europe, to engage with, like I said, tribes or landowners in Indonesian peat swamps. It's really difficult. We tried multiple times, and we are still in contact with different conservation in Indonesia. Like, for example, the Brigenak. It's from the Singapore Zoo funded, basically. A breeding station. They will breed. I think they started with songbirds, and then they expanded to different species. And also with the Parosphromenus and Betta, there were some guys from our project going there, helping them establish the breeding facilities, and also bringing fish there, like when they were field work from scientists. They would bring some of the specimens into the breeding program in Indonesia. So yeah, we are hoping to work more in the actual habitats, also trying to establish more connection with other conservation efforts, like orang-utan conservationists. If they own land or they restore forests, it's also really nice for us if it's the right type of forest. If there's peat swamp involved, then it's most likely also helping the Parosphromenus. So we are always looking for partners to save the Parosphromenus.
Cool. With another question from the floor, Greg would like to know, is the PP mostly a European organization, or is there a chapter in North America?
Yes, it started in Europe, basically in Germany, and that's why the most of the early members, so to say, were German. And then across Europe, there were more supporters, more enthusiasts, and then it became quickly international. Like, I think, I don't know the number of the countries, but it's around the world. There's everywhere someone involved. And also for North America, there's Brian. He's really active right now. So it is possible to say that it's kind of a North American branch. Yeah.
Cool. All right. We've got a couple more questions that have come up off the floor. Next, we'd like to know, is a 30-centimeter tank the minimum required for them to perform their courtship display, or does it differ between species?
This is a really difficult question, because if you just want to breed them, so to say, then there's lots of breeders that would breed a pair in 12 liters, so it's 30 centimeters. But if you see the more natural, so to say, behaviors, like we have one partner, the Aquarium in Düsseldorf, they have a for 24,000 liter tank, so it's more than 3 meters large, and no, it's a really large tank. So I had a look at that, and then they were really interesting behavior, because the females, they would swim around, and then in each sunken wood, driftwood, something, I don't know, where the males would have their territories, they would swim to the female and try to impress them. So they would have maybe 50, 60 centimeters that they would use to, or try to lure the female in. So I think in a natural environment, they would have territory of about 1 square meter, maybe, or probably less because of the black water, but they would move within this area.
Okay, cool. And furthering that a little bit more, Helen would like to know, do you have any tips on breeding, like ideal water parameters, feeding? She has a small group of the red variety of bintons.
Yeah, there's it's different for each species a little bit, but there's also common parameters for like the bintan types. It's basically, if you use osmosis or rainwater, they will probably be able to breed. But if you go a little acidic, they will really like it. And if you go a little more acidic, it's not really hurting them. So there's some reports that state you need to have a pH of about 4. That is not necessary for Parosphromenus bintan or Harvey or everything of every species of these groups. It's probably around 6. They will breed as well. It is necessary to have kind of clean water. So if you have a lot of water change, then it will help. And also that might be the reason why the low pH would be beneficial, because it's less bacteria in there. Then for the feeding, most of the time you would have to have live food. So if you have the chance to catch it, some larvae or Daphnia something outside, then it is fine. But if you don't have the chance, then there's lots of possibilities like Artemia, obviously, but also like, I don't know how you call it. There's black worms, there's some microphax worms, dero worms, then there's grindal worms. There's a multitude of different cultures for live food, like moinas and Daphnia. They usually don't really like it, so they prefer moina. They will eat it better. But if you just have Artemia or as the basis, and then there's some additional like moinas or this microphax, then this is really fine.
Cool. Okay. And we've had another question. Greg has also asked, would you recommend keeping the species separate to avoid crossbreeding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some species that will not be there's more or less no risk of crossbreeding. Like we said in the start, there's different types with a head up. They will not mix with a head down types. But the more problem is with the identification of the females. I mean, for the males, it's more or less easy when they have colors, but for the females, it's really, really difficult to distinguish different species if this is in the same groups. Like for Linke, or there's different species that have a typical coloration even for the females. But if there's the whole Bintan, Harvey, Opalius, lots of these fish, the females will look the same, and then it's more or less impossible to determine if it's crossbred or not. So you would not want to mix it.
Thank you. How have you seen the Parosphromenus, I'm butchering it every time, project evolve over the years?
Yeah, started as more or less, like I said, the German part, and really fast evolved into an international project. Then in the first days, they were more or less, the forum was the center of everything, and then it shifted more to like the homepage being the database for all the information. We started out in German, then English and French as well. Right now, the French translator died a few years ago, so this was we were already really sad, but we decided that the French is a lot of work that we don't want to have anymore. And then we noticed that basically everything is communicated in English, and we had to change the homepage system. So we decided to go with English only for the moment. We still have the French and German parts, so maybe in the future we might add that as well, but we will keep it English for now. And this is the main reason, I guess, that like you are able to read everything that we publish. And also the forum died basically over the years, and there's replaced by Facebook. I'm not really active on Facebook, but Helene always helps me if there's something interesting. And also the demand for hobby and professional conservation project, we noticed that there's a real increase. Like years ago, we tried really hard to contact zoos and aquaria, and it was really difficult. They did not really want to work with private organizations or kind of loose systems. And right now they are coming to us and asking if we are willing to help them with breeding Parosphromenus or something like this. So this is a kind of good development. They see we have kind of the track record with the census, with some positive examples. This is really nice. And yeah, there's always change in the guys that are active at the moment, but I think it's a steady increase in everything, like projects and members. And yeah, it's really nice to see.
Cool. And what's been your most rewarding moment since you've joined the Para Project?
Oh, there's a few. I think this cooperation with the Aqua Zoo in Düsseldorf was one of these moments when they were able to, or they asked that they have this massive tank, and if we want to give them some Parosphromenus, and then we said, okay, we will give you 3 breeding pairs, but you have to breed them in the background, and then come up with your own offspring to stock the massive tank. And then they were really good. So in the start they had like, I don't know, 100 young, and then they would start stocking the big tank and seeing that. So I was there kind of species conservation day, something like this. The whole day we would talk to visitors, and also had the possibility to have a look at the fish whole day. It was really an eye-opener for me. Like, in this really big tank, I thought you would never see them, but they were active all the time. So it was really fun.
Cool. We've got another question from Nick before she disappears. She would like to know, 2 last questions. 1, breeding group versus pairs with Bintan, and which method do you think works the best?
I think it is, if you want to have a lot of young, I would prefer a pair. Or if you want to have them in a group, you would want to monitor the caves and the tubes. If there's some fry in there, you can extract them and transfer into another tank, grow out. It will be more effective. But if you just want to kind of preserve them so that they will breed naturally, it is possible in a group as well. It depends on the tank. I mean, if it's a larger tank with lots of plants and lots of hiding places, then it will work out as well.
Okay, cool. And her final question is it just time before the males figure out how to be decent fathers in terms of looking after the eggs or the wigglers, or do I need to be selective for better brooding males in the group?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to select. It's kind of, we don't want to have this pet Parosphromenus fish. It should be somehow natural, and so there's probably a female choice as well, or the strongest male will have the biggest territory. I don't know. I would, if it's a group, then I would just let them do whatever they want. And if you select a pair, then of course you would have a look in the group, and if there's really active male that is already displaying and cutting the females, then maybe you want to catch this particular pair if they are already working, so to say. If they know each other, then it's probably easier for them as well if you separate them and try to breed them as a pair.
Right. Cool. So what makes this particular group of fish special to you?
Yeah, for me, as I said, at first it was this rarity, so no one was able to obtain them, and breeding, of course, it was a challenge. And it was also a challenge for me in the start to maintain the good tank for them, like having different possibilities. We discussed it already, have a pair to breed or a group, and maybe a bigger tank or a smaller tank. There was lots of different possibilities that no one really knew. I mean, there's different breeders, they have their own opinions, and they were from the start different styles. There were some guys from the Netherlands. They had large tanks with lots of plants and lots of fish in there, and they would breed like a colony breeding. And then on the other side, we had someone like Peter, for example. He would only have 12-liter tanks with just one pair inside, And yeah, so there's a lot of variety in there and lots of unknown things. And yeah, it's kind of part. Maybe it triggers my scientific gene to experiment a little to find the best solutions for this.
Cool. What makes them different to other gouramis? Or even what makes them special compared to other gouramis, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, they are really specialized in this, not necessarily black water, but the peat swamp. So more or less acidic, more or less dark. But there's some other gouramis, like chocolate gouramis, that live more or less in the same habitats. They are a little larger. And also there's this really colorful display. The Parosphromenus have this behavior is really different from the chocolate gouramis, of course, but also from lots of other fish I know. I think it's really special to have this popping colors, a different or interesting behavior. So it's kind of unique, I think.
Cool. What's the significance? Is there significance between the vivid colors and how they develop? Are they different to catch point locations, or are they just, how does that evolve? How does that sort of change from one little species or group to another?
Yeah, there's a lot of evolution going on and still going on. I mean, the whole area, it should be, or it was connected once in a time. It was called Sunderland. So when the sea level was way lower, then there was a large stream system, so connecting basically Malaysia and Indonesia, everything. If it was a common ancestor that was spread over the whole area, I really doubt it. But there's different parts, like, or different species as well, like Parosphromenus paludicula, that's going up to Thailand. That is really basic. And then there's this highly different, like this head up species we discussed already. So there's a large range, and also within each stream there's a possibility of local variants. But we also see if there's different species, and then there's a gradient. So if it's just the colors, then you would find a lot of in between fish if you see, or probably if you look in the areas in between. Maybe some of them are already extinct and it's lost, but it's most likely there's irradiance all over this place. And also in Indonesia, there's lots of different islands. So it was probably the same species, then they were separated, and on different islands, there are some species that really look alike. And then there's some species you can say, okay, they have some differences, but probably it has the same origin. So you can really track down this kind of radiation somewhere.
That's incredibly fascinating. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Does water chemistry affect the coloring in any sort? Like if they're, you said people keep them in 4 pH and some in 6. Does that change affect their behavior, affect their coloration, affect their overall health?
Yeah, I mean, probably most fish that are living in really harsh environments, they might be easier for them to live in a little less harsh environments if you provide the proper water hygiene. But for most Parosphromenus species, it's not really necessary to have this extreme water parameters. So like I said, if you really have this dark black water, you can't really see them. So if you are from a hobbyist point of view, you want to see your fish at least. So most of the time we will not have this really dark water. But on the other hand, if you have a look in this really dark water, then the color patterns will look a lot different. So you will not have this, I don't know, kind of reflection like colors. It's really more contrasting colors than it's in the dark or black water. So this, of course, it should have some impact on the behavior, but for the coloration, it's mostly the mood, so to say. If there's some the parameters are right, the fish are in good health, then they will show the color, obtain, or maybe, yeah, they try to defend the territory, and then they will be colorful, the males. And the females, they are most likely not colorful at all, so there's less to see there.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any unique behaviors that these fish exhibit that might surprise people a little bit?
Oh yeah, there's some kind of, of course, there's this kind of dancing and flashing behavior, but also there's some phenomenon, it's called sexy eyes, because there's a black line across the eye if they are really in the right mood. So if they are really into a female, then you will see this sexy eyes in the males and the females as well. So the females that will have less color, maybe brownish or grayish with some lines on the body maybe, but that's it. But when they're really interested in the males, then they will also show this sexy eyes and this dark line across the eye, and it's really nice to see.
Cool. Is there anything particularly challenging about keeping them in the home aquarium?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the correct water and a live food supply, then it's, I wouldn't say easy, but then there's no major challenges, I guess. But these two parameters already are deterrent for lots of like mainstream hobbyists.
Yeah. Cool. We've had another question off the floor. What about tank mates? Oh, I've totally lost myself here. What about tank mates? Is that achievable, not achievable? What are some recommendations, suggestions to go with them?
Yeah, there's already suggested the boraras, and they are perfectly fine. There's different species that will work, and also other small, like Sundardanio or little, I don't know, cyprinids. There's lots of small cyprinids that are possible. It's also possible to have like the small red betta as tank mates if they are not too aggressive, but especially for having the young in a grow out tank, then the young of both of these species, they will work perfectly fine. And if this is the case, then it is actually possible, if you have a larger group and maybe some other species as well, it is possible to train them a little on frozen food, or in some really rare cases even pellet food. But yeah, mostly it will still stay with the live food. And for other tank mates, yeah, it depends on the water parameters. So it has to be like the same water parameters that the other species also prefer, and it has to be a really, how do I say it, non-competitive species. Running for the food all the time, then the Parosphromenus will have a hard time.
Cool. So we've got a few more questions off the floor. We'll just try and ask them in a logical way. Is the census seeing any significant or interesting data for the licorice gouramis?
Yeah, in the project we have the census 2 times a year, so we ask everyone who is interested to join and share the stock. And there's different things. First of all, the behavior of the keepers. So if there's someone has new fish, he's really into it and really happy, they will share their stock. And then over time, maybe some of them will not breed them and just keep them, and then they think, oh, I don't need to report. So this one will maybe never report again, or maybe just a few years later when there's offspring or when there's a new species. So it's more like a psychology thing that we notice. And then there's also these waves. There's if there's a new species, then there will be more hobbyists interested in the species. Then they will be bred in large numbers. And then when everyone is already fine with or known the species, maybe it's no challenge anymore. There's some guys, probably of you as well, that are interested in new challenges. So they will try to breed a new species, and then if it's easy to breed them, they are not interested anymore. So then they will be less and less interested. And if it's really bad, then this species might get extinct in the hobby. If it's too easy, then there's a probability that it will at some time or at some point get lost if we do not intervene.
Cool. And Helen has a follow-up to that. When it comes to the census, I have not added mine to it because of not being able to definitively identify them. Is there any point in adding them in that case?
I mean, it's always nice to have kind of a number of enthusiasts joining in. So if there's no secure identification, then it's okay. You will just mention that in the report, and then it will be somehow added in the census. I mean, in the past, we had lots of imports of Bintan-like types. So we did not know the location. And as I said, there's a variation of different coloration with more or less the same identification, like a round tail, different colors, but the same, more or less. There's some white tips in the fin, but everything else is the same, something like this. So you need to discuss, is it this species for real? We don't know if we don't have the location, but we would lump up as a commercial import, and then it's fine for us.
Cool. Jody would like to know, has anyone had a breakthrough on treating iridovirus?
I don't really know. And I have never had real issues with this.
Oh, cool. And last one for the time being off floor. Matt has said, since the paros are some of the most endangered fish on Earth, is the future of them only in aquariums? Or is there hope to preserve some of the natural habitat before they go extinct?
This is really difficult because this lowland peat swamp rainforest is one of these habitat types that is most affected. I mean, this is interesting areas for palm oil plantation. These are the areas that larger cities will grow into. But it's also the areas that if the sea level rises, that will be affected the first. So there's lots of different threats. And to be honest, there's some species that are already lost and some species we are really sure that they will become extinct in the near future. It is a hard discussion if it's worth to keep them as an aquarium kind of museum species. There's next to no possibility to reintroduce them if the habitats are gone. I mean, the peat swamp forest, it takes a lot of time to have the same effect on the water. If there's still the peat underneath, like with old palm oil plantations, it is possible to recover and also then to reintroduce maybe, but mostly it's like from different types, different parts of the stream that the fish will relocate and then come back to this kind of plantation. If there's a reserve population somewhere, it is possible. If it is this kind of thing, like I said, when the whole habitat is gone, it's almost impossible. If this changing capacity of the peat is gone, then the water parameter will never be the same or never be perfect for this habitat for inhabiting for Parosphromenus again.
While we're speaking about environment, what's the most significant threat to their environment at the moment?
Yeah, like I said, it's lots of different changes in land use. This is the most threatening thing, but also, yeah, different activities. In the future, probably climate change as well. We already have difference in temperature. When there's palm oil plantation, there's some streams that are still kind of okay-ish for Parosphromenus. If we have a look at the water parameter and the stream structure, but when there's the forest gone, then it will just heat up, so the fish will die. So if the whole scenario will change into a, I don't know, hotter climate, and if you have a look at the maps, then this is right where it can become really, really hot, then the Parosphromenus will also have a larger issue. But this is more into the future. Right now, I think the land use issues is the most severe.
So what sort of a temperature range are they kind of currently sitting in, and what sort of maxes them out?
It's a little bit different for each species, but most of them are okay with minimum about 18 to 20 degrees, depending on the species. And the maximum should be around 30, but it's really the maximum. Some species might have problems when it's 27, 28 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean that's a relatively big swing, but like if all the cover in the wild is being removed and then the sun is just baking the waterways constantly, that's a significant change and a significant issue.
And also the lifespan will reduce drastically if it's really hot.
Yeah. What would be considered an average or a normal lifespan for them?
Usually it's about 2 years if you want to breed them, but then they can still grow really old. There's some fish that are reported to be like 7, 8 years old.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk of any specific populations that have had their habitats significantly affected?
Populations, like species that are right now extinct, or what are you?
Extinct or possibly heading that way, that we should be really, really concerned with and really paying attention to?
Oh yeah, there's lots of species already mentioned in the IUCN list, but there's some like good examples or bad examples, so to say it. Like one is Parosphromenus Friday. It was in the streams around Sidili. This is kind of an exception because there's probably induced Parosphromenus nagi, and they took over, so kind of invasive species that took over the whole system. So there's no Alfredi in this river system anymore. They are still in captivity. We still have them and breed them, but in the original habitat, it's gone. There might be some little streams around the area. There's still research ongoing, so we hope to kind of find some similar locations, but this is one of the species that is most likely extinct in this area as well.
Cool, thank you. Just back onto the project itself. What were the original goals, and have these changed over time?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, the goals, I think they more or less were the same, but there's one thing of having a good idea, and the other if it's possible to pursue them. So at first it was basically hobbyist breeding the Parosphromenus and maybe justifying it by saying it's a kind of backup population, and it turned out it's at some point really is backup populations. And on the other hand, then they always wanted to have cooperations with scientists, with institutions, and also with local local initiatives, but also with locals that have impact on the habitats itself. And of course, the more kind of track record we have, the more possibilities there were to also pursue these more stretching goals.
Mm, mm. What are some significant milestones that have been achieved over the years?
Oh, this is milestones. There were, of course, was the most important thing, the homepage. It was set up really early and filled over the time. So right now it's a really huge archive for all the information about Parosphromenus. Then these different projects and corporations, each might be a milestone on itself. Like I said, this pigeon breeding arc in Indonesia, it was a really good step to have breeding right there in Indonesia, this kind of thing. And there's some strategic corporations as well that we would say it's a milestone. And also having someone like Wenqian Shi, he's also doing lots of research on Parosphromenus and described 2 new species recently. So yeah, it's kind of nice and also a good milestone type of thing to have someone involved in the Parosphromenus project doing the actual field work and the science as well.
Yeah, cool. Are there any research projects or studies currently happening that you can share with us?
Yeah, we aim to have more habitat work for like I said, with the orang-utan guys, they have a large area in Kalimantan. I already contacted those guys, and it's possible that we can share some efforts in conserving these habitats. But yeah, there's no real result, nothing to announce yet. But there's different things also, like legal issues, obtaining permits, doing or the rights to do something. Everything takes time. So yeah, that's something new. And you're interested, we also have a newsletter. You can join, and then Helene will join and tell everyone what's if there's something new.
Cool. And if people do want to join that newsletter, how would they get hold of that? How would they find that?
Yeah, on our homepage, maybe you can link it, the parosphromenusproject.org, and there's this little button to go into the newsletter. And also, if you somehow don't find it, you can just write an email, and then we can have you in the newsletter.
Cool. Yeah, I'll link that into the chat in a few seconds. How do you measure the success of the conservation efforts for a species like the paro?
I didn't hear the first part, sorry.
How do you measure the success of your conservation efforts?
Yeah, it's difficult to measure, but the census is one of the most important parts. And then we noticed it's really difficult to assign a certain species to someone. Like if I tell you you have to breed this species for the rest of your life, you might not be really happy. So there's some guys that are really emotional involved with 1 or 2 species, and we really love those guys that will keep on breeding the same species for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. This is a treasure, and we can measure this in the census, so we can track it. But we also had this plan on distributing different species, and we see the need for conservation in specific species. Then we will try to place them in a zoo or in an aquarium. And there's, of course, the number of zoos that are involved. This is kind of possible to track, and also the success in and breeding them. So breeding the species in the zoos is more not more important than in the hobbyists, but it's good to measure, and for us more securing is if there's some professional involved, like for the hobbyist, if someone has an accident or someone is not willing to go on with its hobby, then it's a different story. And if there's institution involved, there's someone who gets paid for doing the work, then yeah, it's really nice. So if there's someone not willing to go on, and then he has a colleague or a superior just telling them go on with the Parosphromenus, then we are really happy.
Cool. How do you spread the awareness of the species outside of the aquarium community?
So my favorite species.
No. How do you spread awareness of this group of fish to people that aren't involved in the aquarium?
Yes, this is really difficult to measure. I mean, of course, in different actions, like talking to you, and also different talks in aquarium clubs, and having articles. Peter wrote a whole book about Parosphromenus, and also lots of members. It's difficult to call it members because we don't have a official membership, but enthusiasts that are supporters, maybe you can name it this way. They spread the word, and also telling everyone and showing nice pictures is the start of this awareness about Parosphromenus. And then there's lots of hobbyists that are just seeing these nice pictures and ask us about how to keep them, how to get Parosphromenus from the start. So I think this is really a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. Nick would also like to ask, now that she's come back quickly, how are paros collected for the aquarium hobby industry? Are they wild caught, locally bred for wholesale, or bred commercially?
Everything. I mean, the most fish you can buy in the shop will be wild caught and commercially imported. There is the possibility that it is bred in Asia, but it's really rare. So there are some instances where we are really sure that it should be bred in Indonesia and then exported. But the best thing, of course, if you find some breeder in your local area, it would be the perfect match. But it's yeah, to be honest, it's not really likely, depending on where you live. So it might be necessary to reach out and find someone in the same country or the same region. Then it's mostly possible to share the fish.
Yeah. Is over harvesting them for the aquarium industry a concern, or is it not too much of an issue as it is other stuff that's bigger concerns?
Yeah, it's basically the other way around. So when in the first days, as I said, it was really difficult. There was almost no import. And then when there were the imports, then we would have the species. And a short while after, it would never be imported again. And it could be said that this locality was gone. So we tracked that, and in some occasions, it was like this, that there was this native forest, and then there were the first roads. So it was access to the actual habitats. So the fish catchers went there, the collectors had the fish, export them to Germany, for example, and then we would be kind of happy. But this was just the start, because when the road was there, the infrastructure was there, then the next part would be palm oil plantation or rubber plantation or whatever. So the habitat would be lost, and maybe this local type would be extinct. So this was more like a bad sign. If we see the import, then it's the proof that there's infrastructure, that someone can go there, collect the fish. And this is, well, it is not perfect. At least it is possible that it can be caught. I know that there's a significant impact. I mean, Parosphromenus is not this kind of fish that would be imported in the millions. It's really still a really niche fish. So I think there's an impact on the wild population.
And next, we'd also like to ask, can you talk about maintaining genetic diversity in the different Paro species when kept in low numbers by hobbyists, or is that not an issue yet?
Yeah, this is interesting. Talking to different conservation project managers, different zoos, you will have a lot of answers. And the zoo software tracking genetic diversity was built around knowledge from the large mammals like elephants and tigers and these kind of animals. It would be easy to track each individual. They have low offspring and really large and long life cycles. And it's a whole different story for fish. So it's really difficult to say you need to do this or you need to do that. There's another topic for fish is if they are endemic to really a small stream, one peat swamp, then it is really likely that the whole population is somehow related. So the diversity from the start is, so the genetic diversity is kind of low. And it is possible that you can inbreed them forever and then there's no real loss. Of course, there is loss, but it might be easier to have maybe 2 or 3 lines from the original habitat, breed them separately, inbreed them forever, and you will have the full diversity when you necessarily in the future combine these lines. But I think it is not an issue. There is or there are some problems if you inbreed them for multiple generations. There is a point where in some species there might be some how to say deformations, maybe some in some species, but if you select for the healthy ones, like I said, this Parosphromenus alfredi that is not there anymore. Like in the wild, it's gone. It's just Naji in the original habitats. So we had to breed the alfredi that we have. And in one point, there would be lots of these deformed ones. About 1/4 of the offspring would be deformed. And then there's one breeder. He really heavily selected on the healthy ones, and it seemed to be that this problem is not an issue anymore. I mean, at least it's decreasing. So if you select for healthy ones, then there's a time where there will be no issues anymore. Of course, you lost some genetic diversity along the way, but if it's possible to have multiple lines, then it will be more I don't know, practical to preserve the genetic diversity in this way.
A couple of people have mentioned that they've had very small spawn numbers or struggled to raise fry. Is there anything specific that needs to be taken care of for the fry? Is there any, like sometimes discus have a wee issue at sort of 6 weeks, or is there anything that kind of happens with them that can be avoided and to help raise fry?
Of course, it is one thing that the parents might eat them, but it's not necessarily the case. So when I started breeding Parosphromenus, I would just have kind of one batch in 25 liters. So it would be one pair and they would breed and breed and breed. And then if it's maybe the 4th batch, then they would start eating their small siblings. And then I needed to empty the whole tank and start again. But there's some males that try to eat the eggs. So they might be inexperienced, but there's also one hypothesis that they will eat the eggs if there's not a minimum percentage of viable eggs. So if there's a bad rate of healthy eggs, then they will eat the whole thing. At least it is possible. So this might be the case for older fish, but it is a hypothesis right now.
Okay, cool.
But maybe just a little addition. If it's small fry, of course they need small food. So maybe this might be good to have like vinegar eels or infusoria or like big batches of moss inside the tank to help the first days, and then Atemria will work.
And is there any importance in water hardness for successfully breeding them?
Yeah, the lower the better. I mean, it should be, if it's pure osmosis or rainwater, it should be fine. There's no need to harden it. And if you have really, really soft tap water, it might work out, but mostly you would want to lower it. So if it's as low as possible, then you will be fine.
Okay. Are you tracking wild populations of them?
No, not in a systematic way. I mean, we would love to, but there's no funding. I mean, if you want to sponsor us to do this, we would be really happy. But right now, there's no possibility for us to have kind of a systematic tracking or systematic also mapping of distributions. It would be really necessary to do so, but it depends on individual efforts right now. So we have information. There's some guys, also some local guys that will share information, but there's no kind of task force team from the Parosphromenus Project that will go there and check in the habitats. No, we don't have that.
Yeah. Is it very bureaucratical having to go into the wild and be with these fish and track these fish, or is it fairly smooth sailing? Is there local bodies and local government and bylaws that you've got to adhere to, or is it kind of okay going through?
Yeah, in the past it was obviously easy. Everyone was just traveling there and having a look. Right now it's getting more and more complicated. For scientific permits, it is really, really difficult. In Indonesia, I don't know, in Malaysia it might be possible if you have some cooperations with local university. I don't know, I never tried, but from these guys trying to gain access to different permits on a scientific basis, it's really, really hard. And then there's some guy I know, he was in contact with the government for kind of just some guys like us traveling, having a look, and then going back, and they were kind of supportive because, of course, they want to promote Indonesia as travel and fish business, so to say, country. So, of course, they want to support this. But I think if you want to have everything legal, it's difficult. It might be better to contact the local collectors and then ship it with a exporter located in Indonesia. And for most species, it will work out. I mean, you can all find different places in the internet. They offer fish from the wild, and then of course you need to arrange export and maybe a transshipper or something, but it is possible. Yeah.
Is there any misconceptions about the research that gets done or any of the field work that you do?
Misconceptions?
Well, as in belief that people are doing other things when you're out and about there, or is it pretty clear cut that you are in the wild, or people are in the wild for looking for checking populations and trying to make that work longer?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, there's one thing that would be really nice if there's more local scientists involved. I just a couple of weeks ago I talked to someone. He's into loaches, and he had actually a prize set up, so prize money for someone who's willing to work there. So local researchers willing to work with his project, and there was no one really willing to do it.
Wow.
We have the same issues with local cooperation partners, like capable scientists there. It would be nice if there's more enthusiasts. Maybe it's not really necessary to be the finest ichthyologist, but if there's more access to the local programs, I think it would be really nice.
Cool. Are you hopeful for the future of the species?
Some species they will make it definitely, and some species will definitely be extinct. For the whole genus, I think it will survive. For most of the species, it depends on the time frame. To be honest.
Yeah. So for any aquarists interested in keeping paros, what advice would you give them to get started?
Yeah. At first, I would have some information, like I said, about the water parameter and the food. If you have the right water parameter and food supply, you can set up a really easy tank with low maintenance plants. You don't need a lot of light, so just some mosses, ferns, and swimming plants like Salvinia, Ceratopteris. It will be really nice, and then you just need to find the fish. Maybe you can find a local breeder. That would be the best. You can ask them about the breeding parameters, and otherwise there's still different imports available right now.
Yeah. Are they low flow water conditions or sort of mid to high flow?
It's not really necessary. I mean, they come from mostly streams with no high flow. It's more like the water coming out of this peat, and it's not like it's a spring or a lot of turbulence in there. It's more like really slow. And also in the tanks, it's not necessary to have a high flow. If it's too much, then they will avoid it. But if there's a little flow in there, like a little air filter, then you will find sometimes they really enjoy it to just go there where the little flow is.
Helen would like to know, are there still new species being discovered?
Yeah, there's lots of species yet to be found, and whenever there's someone looking in new streams, new parts of already known peat swamp areas, there's lots of different types, probably lots of species. I mean, it's difficult to distinguish or to decide if it's a new species, if it's just a new local type, whatever. But there's already lots of local types, lots of forms that we don't know what it really is. So there's lots of species already found that are not described, and there will be a lot more.
In the wild, what sort of plants are kind of in the water with them?
Plants. There's lots of dead plants, first of all, like fallen leaves, big patch of that. This is also really good for Parosphromenus, having the bottom covered with kind of leaves. It's mostly really good. But you need to exchange them once in a while. Some ask me about dark patterns in the fins, and if you see these dark dots, dark patterns in there, it's usually too much load of organic matter. So exchange your dead leaves in there and do some water change. It will go away. But for the living plants, yeah, it depends. If it's really dark water, there will be no like plants we know from the aquarium shops, it would be more like grasses and more like peat, no, not peat, more swamp-related plants that will grow from the outside. So it's not really water plants. They were just floating on the edges of the channels or rivers. There's not much really native plants, but there are habitats with a wide variety of cryptocoryne known. So there's also some probably mosses and bucephalandras. It's the same habitat types in theory. Yeah, so it's possible to find this.
So just clarifying, you said that when there's too much botanicals breaking down in the water, they get spots on their tail. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the fins, not necessarily just on the tail, on the back fin and the anal fin. It's mostly to see some dark patterns. It's spots, but irregular, like difficult shapes, and it's individual, really different. But yeah, it's not like an illness. It is kind of just showing that there's too much organic load.
That is incredibly fascinating.
You see this in other species as well. I mean, for aneuptoid fish, you can see this at least I saw it in betta and Spherichtis as well. So chocolate gourami, you can see it in some species as well.
Do you think it's them kind of blending in as it breaks down and becomes a bit more wholly, trying to sort of push back into the botanicals breaking down, or do you think it's something else that they're releasing into the water that changes them a little bit? I'm very fascinated in this.
I really don't know about the mechanism. It is more like an observation. And when I first noticed it, then I talked to different other keepers, and they had the same experience, that it's most likely going away if you do some water changes and maybe change your leaves or driftwood, whatever would be the cause of this load. Yeah, I really don't know what is the mechanism and how it's determined. The petal size and also this the, how to say, severity. So how many spots they would develop. It's also not really easy to say there's a linear kind of thing. I mean, it should be the more spots, the more organic load, but I'm not really sure. You should investigate this.
Yeah, this is incredibly fascinating. Is it all of them in the family that do it, or just some particular species?
In Parosphromenus, I think all of them do it. And as I said, for betta, I know that there's in both bubble nest bettas and also mouth brooders and chocolate gourami. Yeah, I saw it in Malpoluta as well once. So I think there's different, but it's all the same kind of fish. Like if you see the bettas, the Malpolutas, Parosphromenus, chocolate gourami is still kind of the same shape. They should be more related than others. So I think it's yeah, it should be, maybe it's a larger phenomenon. I don't know.
This is why we do things like this, to learn cool stuff like that. That's awesome. Greg has then said maybe view those dark spots with a UV light to see if the mechanism to be seen better in the darker water, possibly.
Possible, yeah. I never tried that, but might be. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Greg would also like to know, do you find more than one species of paros in a stream or body of water?
It is possible. I mean, there's some species like Parosphromenus anglinensis and ornaticauda these are two examples. Like one is the usual head down type, and Ornaticauda is the head up type. But there's also reports of different species of these head down types, which is more common. But they usually have a real different coloration. If there's two species in one habitat, then they should have a really different coloration.
Cool. Cool. Is there any specific signs that appear ready to breed, or any behaviours that you note when things are beginning to get ready? You've mentioned the eyes. Is there any other?
Yeah.
Any
If it's really getting serious, then they will have this sexy eyes, and also you will notice when the male is really trying to have its territory, like have a nice place, maybe started to have one or two bubbles, like a minimal nest. Then you really notice, okay, it is active. And for the females, like for all these kind of fish, you will see that they are well fed and have they are ready.
I love that you call them sexy eyes. I think that is awesome.
Yeah, it's not my invention. I don't know who came up with it, but yeah, I think it's kind of good fitting.
Yeah. Is there any specific conditions that encourage? You've mentioned obviously lower hardness, lower pH, and like live foods. Is there anything else? Do water changes trigger them a little bit more with like pure rainwater? And is there anything extra that people can do to help trigger spawns?
It is possible, of course, that the water changes will help, but it's also possible that there's some kind of season. We don't really know, but there seems to be the tendency that in the winter time, so European winter, then they seem to be more active. I don't know if it's the right season that they will somehow have a instinct, but it tends to be easier. But if you have the right conditions, then they will also breed in the European summer.
So something I've always questioned and wondered is like talking about wild caught fish that are from different parts of the world. Obviously, New Zealand, we're coming into summer now. Europe's going into winter. If the fish come from different hemispheres, do they pick up on different seasonal cues to where they're currently living, or is it so entrenched in them from generations that what would be a normal time for them to spawn, but not a normal time to spawn in where they're living? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know. For some species like Corridoras, we know that if there's a thunderstorm, then that might trigger them a little. So it might be also some kind of changes in the atmosphere, like pressure differences. I really don't know. There are different possibilities that are not necessarily kind of hardwired seasons in there.
Is there any common pitfalls or issues that occur when spawning these? We've briefly discussed this, but is there anything else that people need to be aware of, particularly aggressive males or females or anything like that needs to be people need to be aware of?
No, actually, I don't think this is a real issue. I mean, if there's a female that is really large, it is usually not really easy to find a good partner if you only have small males. But yeah, I think this is the same for a lot of other species. So this is not Parosphromenus exclusive.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important for aquarium hobbyists to understand the conservation that's going on and required for these group of fish and what's actually happening to them?
I don't think it is really necessary, but for some folks, they get more and more concerned about, is it correct to do this kind of hobby? Like there's some animal rights guys, is it okay to kind of have animals in captivity? And then there's at least this part of the whole hobby to have kind of a meaning. So you can at least say it is not just for fun. I mean, of course it is for fun, but you can argue that there's a meaning behind it. So you're not just doing it for yourself. You can do it like we discussed. There's some scientific value. Like if you really into observing, doing the behavioral studies, like almost no researcher has the time that you have to look at your fish, and there's lots of information that would be really nice to have. But for all species, not just for Parosphromenus. So I think this is really a lot of possibilities. I think I forgot the question, but
it was regarding if hobbyists sort of need to be aware of the conservation.
Yeah, sure.
I also had a follow up. I forgot to.
There's one thing. If it's the first days, as I said, there was no import, so it was really necessary to breed them. And today there need to be the knowledge that there might be some imports, but it's not guaranteed that there will be imports anymore. And so it's still necessary to breed them. If you have good, healthy Parosphromenus, you should breed them. And even if there's difficulties to find new owners, then still breed them to the extent that you will have enough for yourself and maybe secure them in different tanks. If there's a catastrophe in one tank, you will still have them, because it might not be possible to ever have them back.
What's your viewpoint or standpoint on keeping glass boxes full of fish from an ethical point?
Yeah, this is really difficult. I mean, there is still some minimum size discussions. Parosphromenus is one of the species that is perfect example for being able to breed them in 12 liters, and it's really fine. And they will also have, I don't know how many young in there without any problem. But this is one thing I would say, okay, for just breeding them and having some young in there, it's okay. But for long term keeping them, I would suggest more space is better. A few years ago, we would still say that with a larger tank, it's more difficult to feed them. But now that we've seen this really, really large tank, like I said, this 24,000 liter tank, and then there's 100 Parosphromenus in there. So we do see that they like to have a little space. I think it's not necessary to have these really large tanks. It should be okay if you have something like 50 liters for one pair. It should be, if it's maintained, have a good structure, it should be the size that a usual Parosphromenus, if there's lots of food, would also have kind of its territory in the wild, I guess. I mean, the females might travel between different territories, but it should be more or less, maybe if you're really going on the natural way, you want to have, I don't know, the 1 meter tank, but then you could argue that it's the same space as in the wild. And from an ethical point of view, I think this is okay. If you have the same needs that the fish has in the wild, then that should be perfectly fine.
Cool. If hobbyists or people watching want to get involved in the conservation of paros, how can they help with that?
Well, first of all, of course, you can join the newsletter, and then if there's some census upcoming, please report your stock. Maybe if you don't have Parosphromenus but still want to help, and if there's someone knowing habitats or knowing someone, or maybe you're a researcher doing this kind of things, then of course we will be really happy if you just reach out.
Is there any particular communities or forums that you would recommend people to check out if they want to learn more about these species?
Just for Parosphromenus, I mean, there's from the Parosphromenus Project, there's the Facebook group, and the homepage is a huge database. There are a couple books on Parosphromenus available, but I think communities, there might be an aneuploid club in your country that also have some Parosphromenus specialists, so maybe you can ask them.
Cool. I'm just a little bit curious on what you are currently keeping. Like, how many aquariums do you have, and how many different species of fish in general are you currently keeping?
This is kind of tricky because it's not just my private hobby tanks. It's also like the shrimp breeding facility and different fish there. So everything together, I should have about 300 aquariums. But just for Parosphromenus, it's more or less, I'd say, right now maybe about 10. There was more, and it will be a little more in the future. But right now, I only have, let me count, 5 species. And I think it's fine. If there's someone really, like I said, interested in conservation and they don't have the space, it's really nice if you have your favorite Parosphromenus species, and you can breed them forever. Is the perfect breeder for us. Like if it's dependent, if we know that this species is secure in this place, maybe you have 2 or 3 tanks just for security backup. It's always better to have more tanks. But this would be the optimal setting would be like 2 or 3 breeding pairs, 1 or 2 growth, and then some spare, maybe a community tank. This would be the optimal setting.
We speak to a lot of people. We speak to people basically every week, and some groups of fish seem very out in the open, and people will swap fish all the time and quite regularly. Paros seem like a little bit of an underground, I don't want to say secret fish, but a very small little group of fish that only not a lot of people have, and there's very little people keeping them to swap them over. It's like a little underground secret of fish. Would you kind of see it that way, or have you networked a lot wider than that?
Yeah, I agree. It's a niche. It's really a niche for this highly adapted fish. I mean, the colors, they're really nice. The behavior is really nice, and everyone will love it. But if you just go for the water and the food, then it's lots of the hobbyists. They are just out, and then they are not interested anymore. So I think it's a mostly specialist fish.
Yeah, I think that's fair call. Niche is a very fair call. It definitely feels that way just talking with you about this whole topic.
Yeah.
With that in mind, what's the most effective way of raising awareness of them? How can we build more interest in these fish? Because they are absolutely spectacular. They're very pretty looking fish.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really nice to have more good pictures and videos of them, but it's difficult to have them. I mean, there's different methods. There's some guys really talented in taking pictures. There's some method someone is using, well, I think there's multiple guys using mirrors. So if you just have a mirror, then the males will show up and display and try to impress its image. So this is a way to have nice pictures, but I'm not really good in doing this. But this is I think, best way to promote the fish, just with this its looks, and then whoever is interested will reach out and have a look at the possibilities, and then most of them will be deterred by the parameters, the water parameters. But if there's someone really interested, then maybe they will start with it.
Is there anything happening outside of the aquarium industry that is helping with the conservation, like stuff that's happening in that region that people are fighting against that will help the cause here?
Yeah, like I said, the breeding program in Indonesia is a really stable and dependable part. And I hope that there will be more connections between different conservation efforts for different species. So all those mammals and bird guys, they have a lot of attention, and it would be really nice to help raising the awareness that there's not just this kind of cute animals, but you can preserve the cute animals and almost by accident save some others as well. So it would be really good to communicate that it's not just the orangutans and the tigers, but there's a whole lot of ecosystem and different species, not Parosphromenus, that can be saved the same way.
Greg would like to know, where can we get the books on paros you mentioned?
There's it was kind of easy a few years ago, but right now the most kind of popular book by Peter Finke and Martin Heilmann, I think it's sold out. But there are lots of articles in different magazines. On the homepage of the Parosphromenus Project, there's also some articles, I think some op maxes as well, so you can have a look there. But on the books, I'm not sure. Maybe it is listed there, so you will see the title. But this book in particular is in German. There should be some English version as well. There's some booklet kind of thing in the UK as well. Older version from, I think it was made by David Armitage. So he might still have some.
Where am I up to? How do you educate the public on conserving lesser known species like this? Is it just trying to get it out in the open more often? Just more photos, more videos, more conversations like this, more people sharing? Is that the way forward?
Yes, I think so. So this is the thing that we can do. Of course, there's the possibilities, like I said, with the zoos. They, of course, have then display tanks with its information written on there. They sometimes might have different, I don't know, action display like palm oil awareness, and also this rubber plantation, habitat destruction. There's lots of possibilities for exhibitions and these kind of stuff, but it's not that we as Parosphromenus Project will actively do that. We don't have the manpower to do this.
Are you guys taking on volunteers to help within the organization, or like is there a way that people can help with time investment?
Yeah, sure. We are always looking for someone that is really enthusiastic. I mean, there's a lot of work involved, doing the census, doing the newsletter, keeping in contact with different organizations. So it's also possible there's some local aquarium or zoo that is willing to be involved, and there's always necessary to have someone kind of staying in contact and helping them to start the whole thing. And it's also necessary for our newsletters, for the Facebook, for the homepage, to always have new content. So if there's someone willing to help, we are always happy.
Cool. Is there a message that you'd like to leave with our audience about the importance of each of the small efforts that happen in conservation?
Yeah, I mean, if there's something we can do with our hobby, if we can do something good, and even if it's just a try, then I think it's worth to do so. So of course we can do a little with our hobby, and maybe raise awareness as well. Talk to our friends, aquarium friends, about conservation efforts, not just for Parosphromenus, also for, there's lots of different species that might be interesting candidates for this kind of conservation breeding, or at least thinking about breeding is the first step. If then when there's no necessity to import them, and maybe there's no chance to import them again. So it's always good to know how to breed your fish and to not be dependable on imports in general.
Well, that's brought us to the end of my structured questions I've had. You've managed to answer my questions before I answered them in the general conversation, so that was kind of cool. We'd like to end our Finatics Friday Coffee Date with what we call the quick school of 6. It's 6 very short answer questions that aren't meant to put you on the spot, but sometimes they do. So my first question to you is, in a coin toss, do you call heads or tails?
I think heads.
Heads, go. Are you a tea or a coffee drinker?
Tea.
Tea. Are we alone in the universe?
Pardon? I didn't understand.
Are we alone in the universe?
Oh, statistically not.
Fair cool. If you could have a meal with someone alive or dead, fictional or real, from any point in time, who would it be?
Oh, this is difficult. Maybe Alexander von Humboldt. He had lots of different expeditions. I would like to check about that.
Paper, scissors, rocks. What's your first call?
Rock.
Cool. And what is a unicorn fish for you? One that you haven't seen, kept, spawned, taken photos of? What's that one fish for you?
That I always wanted and never had?
Yeah, that could be an option.
This is. I always wanted to have this chocolate gourami, Sphaeroctis violanti. So like the samurai gourami, I think it's called in English. It is. I want to have this kind of fish with a known location and then breed it for a longer time. I saw it at a friend's place, but with no locality, nothing known, and he said it was really difficult to go, but it's a really beautiful fish. So, at some point in time, I might be able to breed it.
Cool. And my last question for you is, where can people find you or the Parosphromenus Project if they're looking to get some more information or connect with you or anything like that?
Yeah, so Parosphromenus Project, you will find us easiest way. Just Google Parosphromenus, and hopefully you will find the parosphromenusproject.org. There's also the email addresses listed there, so you can just contact General at Helene or myself will answer it. And yeah, this is the easiest way. And also, like I said, there's the Facebook group. I will not see it, but lots of other guys will talk to you there. For me personally, it's also Aquapurist. This is my YouTube channel as well. I wrote the first messages in the chat with this account. So if you just want to find me, you will find me this way.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's much appreciated. I, for one, have definitely learned a lot more. And I know there's been some very captivated watchers and learning plenty more. So really appreciate your time with us, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm always happy if there's some enthusiasts about Parosphromenus conservation.
Cool. Oh, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been greatly appreciated. Hope you have a lovely day. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good one, team. Happy fish keeping, and catch you all later.
All right. You're the same, right?